welcome back to Auntie Tay's YouTube channel, and you're on another episode of The Sam Show. I'm so thankful you're here. Make sure you're subscribed to Auntie Tay's YouTube channel and like this video if you like today's project. And one of the things that really got me into Auntie Tay was all of the DIYs that she did for the Disney parks. And I thought today I would do my spin on that on counting down to the next time we get to go. I know it's the hardest time when you're waiting to go, so why not make a fun project to count down how many more days until your next magical vacation. Let's get started. Hey everyone, it's Sam from the Auntie Tay team, and you're watching The Sam Show. Let's go make some fun things. I started off with this 12 by 12 framed plywood blank that I got from Walmart. I damped it down just so the paint went on easier because I wanted to do an ombre effect in like a midnight nighttime background. I did a brighter blue on one end and then a dark navy and blended them together. The first layer is always a little bit off, and then the second layer, that's really when you can blend the colors and get that really good base on it. And once I had my background completed, I then took this dotting tool that I got from the Dollar Tree, but you can also use the end of a paintbrush. And I took this silver paint and dotted the darkest part of the sky because they're going to be little twinkling stars. And I just dotted more stars at the top and then just got less and less as the sky gets lighter, you know, when the sun sets and it's still kind of bright towards the bottom. You know what I'm talking about. It's really simple, and put as many stars as you want. Since my blank is a 12 by 12 blank, I designed on a 12 by 12 square on Design Space how I wanted my stencil, and I just sliced it all in that square and then cut it out on stencil vinyl. You can do each piece individually. I just like it being all pre-designed, so I just have to lift it and transfer it all at once. It is a little bit harder when you do a 12 by 12 transfer to get it all perfectly flat, so you can always do it in pieces. This is just how I did it. And then I weeded it on the mat because I did not want to risk pulling this up more than I had to. And I like using the masking transfer tape, and you can see I layered it and then flipped my mat over. And this is how I'm going to peel the mat off the transfer. This helps prevent bubbling. I sped the video up, but essentially you're just going to rub the back of it and slowly peel it up. This is the touchiest part of moving it over to your blank. But once it's on there, you're just going to spend a lot of time slowly rubbing it down. I love the masking transfer tape because it sticks just enough without pulling up the stencil vinyl. Do your best to get as many bubbles out as possible. If you need to, use an X-Acto knife or pin to pop any bubbles. You can see I kind of pushed the excess up towards the middle and tried to pinch it there so it would stop pushing the bubble to where I didn't want it. And I also put painter's tape around the edge that wasn't quite covered. Using a foam brush and matte Mod Podge, I went in and very lightly put a layer first. This will help prevent bleeding. And you don't want to put too much at a time. Do very, very thin layer of it and really dab it out, only going up and down. Try not to go side to side too much. That will push up your stencil. I decided to use this white metallic, it's like a pearl paint, and I wish I would have done just white first because this took 4 layers for it to show up really well. So take my advice, and if you want a pearl paint color, go in with a solid white first instead of wasting all of your pearl color. The white will give it a better backdrop. So you can see I did 1 layer and then I let that dry. I did a second layer. It was a lot of painting just because of the type of paint and the white going onto a dark color. Next time I'll just use a white for the first couple bases and then do a top coat in the pearl. When you do your layers, you want them to be very thin because if you do too thick of layers, it will peel by the end. So make sure you are taking your time in doing more thin layers instead of a lot of thick layers. Once you're happy with your coverage, on the last layer, after it's semi-dry, that's when I start pulling up the tape, and that's actually when I pull off the stencil vinyl. I do not like waiting for it to completely dry. I tend to have a lot more peeling if I let it fully dry. So once your layer is dry, move on to the next layer. And when you're on that last one, pull it up before it's completely dried. You do want to be really careful that none of that wet paint is touching any other part, especially when you're weeding with your weeding tool, the tiny little pieces. You don't want them to flip over on itself and leave a wet mark. I did have a decent amount of bleeding. My paint was pretty wet, but that's nothing we can't fix. All I do after that is I go in and try to touch it up to the best of my ability. If you keep any of your leftover paint, especially if you mixed paint, try to keep some leftovers to touch up. It'll make your life so much easier than trying to remix and match colors, especially if you do like an ombre or some kind of mixed painting. I got these hooks from Walmart. They are nothing fancy. You can actually get something way smaller. These were just the smallest ones I could find. I used a chalk marker and a ruler, and about every 2 inches I spaced where the hooks are going to go, and I used a chalk marker so that it kind of washed away with a little bit of water so that it didn't stay on there. Using some good old elbow grease, I just screwed them in. You should be able to do it by hand. It takes a little bit to get started, but if you push down hard while you're twisting, they go right in. So there we have it. That does stick out a little bit on the back, but not very far. That's what's kind of nice about it being framed. So you have a little bit of space. It's not going to scratch your walls or anything. Using some white cardstock, I printed off these little cards that had numbers on them, and I did this 3 times so you can count down for a very, very long time. 999 days to be exact. I don't know how many people have a vacation planned that far out, but if you want to, you can. It was just easier to print and cut that way. But you just hang them on the little hooks and you count down every day. This would be so fun with littles. If you have a big trip planned, this is a great way to keep track and maybe give you a little craft to get you out of the funk until you can go on said trip. There are so many themes you can go with. I just loved the Cinderella magical countdown theme. I hope you guys loved this, and I really hope you guys do this in the future. Please tag me, A Spark of Sam, and Auntie Tay on social media. Thanks, guys. See you next week.